You are listening to the Nightline Sports Network, brought to you by Travis Dever and the Dever team, 386-690-1636.
Welcome to the AAC Report, only on the Nightline Sports Network. I'm Jeff Allen. Coming up, we'll recap Week 2 and get you set for Week 3 action in the American, including our Spotlight Game of the Week, Mississippi State, traveling to Memphis. Frank Murtaugh will join us to talk about that. He is of the Memphis Flyer and Memphis Magazine, and he will join us in just a few moments to talk about that. Of course, the big news last week was the impact of the Big 12 expansion and how it affects the AAC, as Cincinnati, UCF, and Houston all were extended invitations and all accepted. They, along with independent football BYU, will be making the trek to the Big 12 as early as 2023, 2024. It'll probably some early exit possibilities there as well that we'll keep an eye on, but those three schools, the top part of the American, are headed to the Big 12. AAC Commissioner Mike Oresco issued the following statement, basically saying the news confirms what we said along regarding our status of power conference. The irony that three of our schools are being asked to take the place of two marquee schools which are leaving the Big 12 not lost upon us. Our conference was targeted for exceeding expectations in a system that wasn't designed to accommodate our success. All three of these institutions have enjoyed unprecedented success as members of the American, as have our remaining schools. Many of our schools have achieved competitive success similar to the departing schools. We have every expectation that the three departing schools will abide by the conference bylaws to ensure an amicable and orderly transition. We wish them continued success in the future. Our remaining schools are unwavering in their commitment to competing and succeeding at the highest level, and we will not allow external factors to put a ceiling on our potential. We remain unified and resolute and will consider all of our options as we move the American into our second decade and beyond. That the statement from AAC Commissioner Mike Oresco. And one thing that he points out that is very true, the Autonomous Five, the Power Five, whatever you want to call them, has always kept the G5 at arm's length. You're not good enough, you can't be in the playoff and all that good stuff. But boy, they have no problem poaching coaches and taking players in the transfer portal, and now taking teams from the G5. Now, for at least three of those teams in the American, it is a benefit to them. So it is an interesting aspect as the shape-shifting of the college football landscape continues. Well, let's look at last week's scoreboard. Memphis, a 55-50 road win against Arkansas State. The schools combined for 105 points and 1,360 yards. Quarterback Seth Hennigan threw for 417 and 5 touchdowns in his second career start. Calvin Austin III, 6 catches for 239 and 3 touchdowns. SMU had a 7-6 halftime lead against North Texas, but then they got galloping in the second half to win 35-12. Tanner Mordecai, 21-33 for 312 and 4 scores, gives him 11 TDs, the most by any SMU player in his first 2 games in program history. 7th-ranked Cincinnati found itself in a 7-7 halftime tie with Murray State, but the Bearcats got busy in the second half, 42-7 victory there. Jerome Ford had 113 yards and 3 touchdowns on 18 carries. UCF had a 4-touchdown performance from Isaiah Bowser, and that guides them to a 63-14 win against Bethune-Cookman. Dylan Gabriel had 312 and a touchdown, and also a wild 44-yard rushing TD. Temple went on the road for his first win of the season. 2 defensive touchdowns helped them to a 45-24 victory at Akron. Quarterback Justin Lynch, 245 and a touchdown, and a rushing score in his first career start. Houston got up to a fast start, and this time they were able to keep it going as they score a 44-7 win against Rice in the Bayou Bucket Classic. Running back Alton McCaskill found the end zone 3 times, twice by ground, 1 in the air, becoming the first true freshman at Houston since 2008 to score 3 touchdowns in a game. Tulane got a easy victory, 69-20 against Morgan State. That game played in Birmingham as the Green Wave had 9 players score touchdowns. East Carolina, they had upset bid alert against South Carolina, but fell 20-17 to the Gamecocks on a field goal as time expired. And Tulsa also had Oklahoma State on upset alert for the second straight year, but they lost 28-23 to the Cowboys. All right, week 3, it all kicks off Friday night. UCF hits the road for the first time to play Louisville at 7:30 p.m. on ESPN1. Yes, or just regular ESPN, right? I'm used to saying ESPN2, but it's ESPN. And the series is tied at a game apiece, and UCF won in dramatic fashion back in 2013, rallying from a 21-point deficit to win 38-35. Saturday, Cincinnati at Indiana. That'll be noon on ESPN. Indiana leads the all-time series 9-3, and there's been 2 ties. The last time they played, though, was in 2000. Indiana won that one. Boston College at Temple, noon kickoff on ESPNU. BC leads the series 29-7 with 2 ties, and they were victorious in their last meeting in 2018. SMU at Louisiana Tech. That's a 3:30 start on CBS Sports Network. Louisiana Tech leads the all-time series 4-1, and they won the last meeting back in 2017. Tulsa takes on Ohio State, 3:30 on FS1. Ohio State won their only meeting back in 2016. East Carolina at Marshall, 6 o'clock on CBS Sports Network on Facebook. And East Carolina leads that series all-time 10-5. Marshall won the last meeting, but that was back in 2013. Grambling State at Houston, 7 o'clock ESPN+. The Cougs lead that series all-time, winning both of their encounters, including the last one in 2014. Florida A&M is at South Florida, 7 o'clock ESPN+. The Bulls lead the all-time series 3-0, and they won the last meeting, obviously, in 2015. Tulane at Ole Miss. That will be an 8 o'clock ESPN2 game. Ole Miss leads the all-time series 41-28, and Ole Miss won the last meeting back in 2012. Next up, we talk about our Spotlight Game of the Week, Mississippi State and Memphis. Frank Murtaugh, the Memphis Flyer and Memphis Magazine, joins us to talk about that when the AAC report continues in just a moment.
Hey, this is Travis Dever, Kai's Real Estate, the Dever team, New Smyrna Beach. Your source for real estate and everything else, New Smyrna Beach. Proud sponsor of Nightline. Call me anytime at 386-690-1636. That's 386-690-1636. Let me show you my hometown, New Smyrna Beach, UCF's favorite beach. Go Knights and charge on.
An auto accident can change your life forever. At Chad Barr Law, we are raising the bar on what to expect from your personal injury attorney. Hi, I'm Chad Barr, and I want you to know that our entire team is dedicated to providing you with the representation you deserve in your greatest time of need. If you or a loved one have been injured in an auto accident, call 407-599-9036 for a free consultation or visit chadbarlaw.com. At Chad Barr Law, our clients come to us in need and leave as family. Offices Altamont Springs.
Looking for more out of your Porsche? Look no further than Flat6Motorsports.com. They have the widest selection of aftermarket Porsche parts anywhere in the world. With over 85 product lines and in-depth expertise, Flat6Motorsports.com is your one-stop shop for any Porsche performance needs. Whether you're shopping for intakes, exhausts, suspension, or tuning, they have you covered. Flat6Motorsports.com is the premier Porsche aftermarket specialist. Check them out at Flat6Motorsports.com.
All right, time to take a look at our Spotlight Game of the Week as 2-0 Memphis takes on 2-0 Mississippi State. Joining us now to talk about that, we welcome our friend back to the show, Frank Murtaugh from Memphis Magazine and the Memphis Flyer. Frank, how are you?
Doing great, Jeff. It's great to be back with you. It's a big week here in the Mid-South, to say the least.
Yes, no doubt about that. As we are underway with the football season, glad to have football back. And, of course, Memphis hosting an SEC team in Mississippi State, coming in 2-0. Boy, that was quite a track meet last week with Arkansas State.
You're not kidding, man. I had to look at the stat sheet 2 or 3 times, thinking my eyes were blurry. Both teams putting up precisely 680 yards. The kind of coincidence that only a math major could appreciate. It's a lot of questions on the Memphis, on the defensive side of the ball for Memphis, and a lot of excitement on the offensive side, Jeff, to be honest. Excitement that I'm not sure we were counting on as recently as 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, no question about that, and we'll get to that momentarily. But boy, in this last game, both teams combining for 1,000 yards through the air. That's incredible.
Yeah, it's nuts. It's nuts, Jeff. I think the Tigers, if they were guilty of anything, they were scoring too quickly. 6 of their 8 scoring drives were less than 2 minutes. And that what that ends up doing over the course of a 60-minute football game is it puts a strain on your defense, ironically, because they're on the field longer. The Tigers had, if I'm not mistaken, something like 70 plays, and Arkansas State ran off like 98, close to 100 plays, and that's gonna test a strong defense, let alone one that's trying to institute a new scheme under Mike McIntyre and try and shore up some of the problems that we saw last year with the Tiger defense. But boy, this week, when the Bulldogs come to town, it's going to get real.
Yeah, so let's talk about the true freshman, Seth Hennigan. 5 touchdown passes, and he had big shoes to fill with taking over for Brady White, and it looks like so far he's been up to the challenge.
He's a remarkable story, Jeff. He's a true freshman, the first true freshman to start at quarterback for Memphis in the season opener in the history of the program. This kind of thing just isn't done. A year ago, we'd be talking about him playing on Friday nights for his high school in Texas. He's a coach's son, though. He's sort of a football version of a gym rat. He's grown up around the pigskin, and he clearly has impressed Ryan Silverfield enough for him to leapfrog, Keelan Brown and take that starter's job when Grant Gunnell went down with an injury. Most of us who follow the program spent the summer trying to, formulate ideas of how Grant Gunnell would impact the Memphis Tigers, and now it looks like he may be out, at least a lengthy period of time, if not the whole season, with some surgery. But Seth Hennigan, his profile picture looks like he's barely out of middle school, but he's a sharp. He's a sharp decision maker. I think I'm taking words I would imagine Ryan Silverfield would want to share about him. Silverfield has emphasized to me that whoever plays quarterback for Memphis is going to have to be making smart decisions with every snap, every play. And that doesn't necessarily mean a smart decision leads to a lengthy gain, though it has for the first 2 games, but it means that you prevent negative plays or catastrophic plays in some cases. And, the young man hasn't thrown an interception in 2 games. As I said, I think it's going to get a little hairier this Saturday when Mississippi State comes to town. You got SEC recruits in the secondary for the Bulldogs, and young Mr. Hennigan's going to really be tested. But that's why they play the games. Yeah,
absolutely. And of course, Calvin Austin III had a career night with 239 yards. And, you also look at, Sean Dykes had 143 and a couple of scores. And then you look, it's not just all through the air, as Brandon Thomas so far on the season, 338 yards on the year so far. So they are getting good balance from both the run and the pass.
Yeah, we knew going in that whoever was going to quarterback the Tigers, Jeff, was going to have targets. Sean Dykes is the record holder for every category among tight ends in Memphis history. He's one of these super seniors, and so he's piling up stats and showing NFL scouts what he might be able to do on Sundays. And yeah, Calvin Austin, he's a game breaker and has clearly meshed with Mr. Hennigan every bit as much as he did with Brady White a year ago. So knowing you had those 2 guys there, catching the ball downfield, and yeah, you toss in Brandon Thomas, a redshirt freshman from North Little Rock, who reeled off a 70-yard touchdown run and put up almost 200 yards against the Red Wolves. That's I've been watching football a long time, Jeff, and if you're good through the air and good on the ground, you're going to be successful. That's pretty much the equation for winning football games. And the Tigers, through 2 games, they've done that in spades.
Yeah, and in Arkansas State, certainly a team, they will go and play anywhere, and they've had some good success in the G5 ranks, and in fact they're going to play Washington next week, and they'll also match up with Tulsa. So this is a team that certainly was not going to be a pushover, and it given Memphis a pretty good game last year, albeit a somewhat COVID infected game.
Oh, yeah. Well, you don't score 50 points against an FBS opponent without having some weapons. And, they put up, big yardage with two quarterbacks, splitting the game essentially. So, Arkansas State's not one to scoff at when you're counting these big numbers that Memphis has compiled, at least compiled last Saturday night. They're not the SEC. They're not Mississippi State. I'd go so far as to say they're not the AAC. They're not going to be what Memphis is facing come October and November. But it was the right kind of test, I would say, for week 2 of the season for the Tigers. And again, that they scored too quickly. But if they were, had Hennigan tossed an interception, had there been some more mistakes on offense, that 5-point win could have been turned around, and we'd be having a different conversation about what's needed against the Bulldogs. But as of now, 2-0, they got a clash of undefeateds come Saturday night at the Liberty Bowl, and what else could you ask for this early in the season?
Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit. Liberty Bowl, are there any fan restrictions, or are they opening up to everybody?
It's opened up, Jeff. Yeah, it is opened up. There were 30,000, I think a legitimate 30,000 for the opening game against Nichols 2 weeks ago. I would expect it to be considerably higher than that come Saturday, with folks traveling from Starkville and parts between here and Starkville. This is a rivalry, Jeff, that it's been long overdue, this game. They haven't played in 10 years. It was 2011 was the last time Mississippi State came here, and that was the depths of the Larry Porter years, only 2 years here in Memphis, and the Bulldogs had their way with Memphis. But for 30 years, 1974 to 2003, these two teams played each other every fall. It was sort of a rite of the season. So having that come back, I think, is going to be therapeutic to a lot of old timers, certainly, and it's going to remind young fans how good this regional rivalry might be. Because Mississippi State, with Mike Leach in command, they're going to score points too, and they're going to be a formidable task for the Tigers. And it's just going to be healthy to see that maroon back in the Liberty Bowl after so long. Yeah,
and as you mentioned, they did play quite a bit, 44 previous times before that last meeting in 2011, and Mississippi State leads that all-time series 33-11. And then, as you mentioned, Mississippi State coming in, they had a 1-point win over Louisiana Tech, and then a 2-touchdown win over NC State. But they're about to see some offensive firepower that they haven't encountered just yet, and it'll be quite an interesting matchup. Do you think this will be a high-scoring affair? Do you think Memphis can find some answers on defense?
Oh, yeah, Jeff, I think absolutely. We're looking at another, it's going to be a fun game for folks who watch on ESPNU. A lot of points. Will Rogers completing 75% of his passes through 2 games. He's in command of things behind center for Bulldogs. And yeah, we've talked about the weapons that the Tigers have displayed already. I would not expect there to be many 3-and-outs Saturday night or Saturday afternoon. High-scoring affair, the kind of ball game that, going back to the long series that Mississippi State and Memphis held together, I don't think there have been a lot of these. I think there have been more along the lines of the 17-14, 21-17 ball games. But there are going to be some fireworks Saturday afternoon at the Liberty Bowl.
Yeah, of course, they certainly don't want to have a misstep as they start their SEC schedule a week later. So, again, with a high-scoring affair on tap, you said Saturday afternoon, but it may go into Saturday night because those high-scoring games tend to go a little long.
That's the truth.
Yeah. So, tell me what you see so far after 2 games with Ryan Silverfield. Again, as I said, he had to replace quarterback, but he had weapons. Do you see this team, do you see them making progression?
Yeah. 2 games in, Jeff, they've already had 24 plays of more than 20 yards. And that's a number that I've been covering Tiger football long enough to know that that's a silly stat. That in the I mentioned the Larry Porter era. There were days, there probably a month went by without 24 plays that went 20 yards, and here the Tigers are just throwing the ball and running the ball almost at will. I'm going to be interested to see what both defenses can do. If these programs have been focusing on anything the last 2 weeks, it's how they can shore up their defense. So particularly Mike McIntyre with Memphis, and if you can get, if either team has a defense, we know they're both going to score. So is that an 8-win season, a 9-win season? Are we talking, conference championship contention? I better not go there with Mississippi State, but for the Tigers, they want to get back in the mix for an AAC championship, and the defense, I think, is the swing variable for them. So to see how that plays out Saturday afternoon, I think, is the metric I would be watching, and not just against Mississippi State, but the next week against UT San Antonio before conference play begins the following week.
And of course, as you look at this covering Mississippi State, have you been on any teleconferences yet with Mike Leach? Has he said anything wild and wacky as he's prone to do?
I have not. No, I've not done my scouting for Leach in his program. I just know by reputation, and I think that makes college football interesting. Maybe with quotation marks interesting, but it'll be fun. It's always fun having personalities in the mix, and Ryan Silverfield is, I don't think, cut from the same cloth Mike Leach is, and I honestly think that's a good thing. But to have opposites on either sideline is healthy, and it's sort of the rekindling of an old rivalry. And if Silverfield and Leach are in these seats for a while, it could get very fun in these parts, because it's just speaking from the 1990s alone. It's a very fun rivalry.
Do they have any of the games scheduled beyond this year?
They're playing next year in Starkville, I believe, Jeff. I need to look at my feature schedules to confirm. There's let me glance here. They're playing at Mississippi State, yes, September 24th, 2022.
Okay.
And beyond that, I'm not certain.
Well, hopefully this will spark a little bit of activity on continuing that series. So
yeah.
I certainly have to ask you, with the news of the Big 12 expansion, and they're rating 3 teams from the AAC, and I'm sure Memphis was kind of hoping to be one of those teams considered. What's the feeling like up there in that area?
It's really dispiriting, as you might imagine, Jeff. It's the Tigers have been through this before. They've been, sort of, ignored outside the dance hall when leagues have expanded before. Way back when the Big East was restructuring itself, and this preceded the American Athletic Conference. So Tiger fans are used to the disappointment, but I think in this case, with the success the football program has had over the last 7 years, it's really disappointing. And compounding the misery, of course, is that 3 of their top rivals in the AAC, Houston, Cincinnati, and UCF, maybe especially UCF, those 3 going to another league. That's it's the cool kid coming to the playground saying he's not going to play with you and taking your 3 best friends with him to play elsewhere. That's just it's a hard pill to swallow. But I say all that, and I'll tell you what I wrote in my column last week is I'm not convinced that the college football landscape has found a rigidity. I'm convinced there's going to be more expansion, more movement, whether it's leagues expanding or programs moving between leagues. So the task for Laird Veach, the athletic director here, is just to keep his phone lines open. Don't burn any bridges. Don't say the wrong things to any commissioners, and just keep winning football games. Jeff, I've said this since the days of Conference USA. If Memphis takes care of what it can with the schedule that's put in front of it, good things will happen. And good things are happening to the program. For one thing, recruits are coming here seeing the winning ways. Memphis is now one of only 5 programs that have 7 straight seasons with 8 wins. And the others, you've heard of them. They're Alabama, Clemson, Georgia, and Oklahoma. Mm-hmm. Then the little old University of Memphis, 7 straight seasons of 8 wins. Those are the 5 programs. So good things are happening to the Memphis football program, even if the powers that be in certain leagues are ignoring it. I'm convinced that there will be a meeting of the minds at the right place. I just don't know when the right time is. Is that going to be a year from now, or you and I be talking about it when we're grandparents. Who knows? But for now, it's dispiriting. But the Tigers can only keep taking care of business, winning football games.
Yeah, of course, if you look at it this way, you say you don't burn your bridges. If they win conference titles while those teams are still in the American, that could set them up for, an invite if the Big 12 opens their doors again, or if somebody else goes that way. And the other thing I was thinking about, too, is Memphis would have been a hell of an addition to the Big 12 for basketball.
Jeff, absolutely. And that was an addendum to the column I wrote, as, bringing, especially right now with what Penny Hardaway is doing, bringing Memphis into a league that, has the reigning national champion in Baylor, the perennial blue blood in Kansas, that all of a sudden makes that league a different kind of animal. And, I'm like you. I think that the basketball program is a bonus for whichever league might pursue Memphis. We know football is the moneymaker. Football's the kingmaker, however you want to put it. But the Tigers, frankly, have checked that box. They have a winning football program, a perennially winning football program. So with what's going on, under Coach Hardaway, I think there's a lot the Memphis athletic department has to offer.
The one common thread I see in the teams that are going into the Big 12 is they all have their stadiums and arenas on campus. Do you think that's something that hurts Memphis, and likewise a team like South Florida?
I wonder, and I need to ask some folks about that. I'd like to ask people, I guess, in the Big 12 commissioner's office about that. There was a time I was really skeptical about Memphis playing in the Liberty Bowl, and those times were when a crowd of 20,000 was strong, and in a 60,000 seat stadium, that's not a good look. And conferences look at that now. But when you're bringing 30,000 in, and the stadium has been renovated, it maxes out at about 58,000 now. When you bring 30,000 in for Nichols, and you're bringing in game day a couple of years ago with SMU here in town for ESPN's game day, there were almost 60,000 people in that stadium on a Saturday night. That's football at its best. So in a rambling way, I guess I'm saying the Liberty Bowl, I think, could work. An on-campus stadium for the University of Memphis is something that, associates of mine, good friends of mine here in town are still big advocates for. So, maybe that happens. Maybe that's part of the mix. The Tigers have done everything except build a new stadium, and they have a new indoor facility. Their locker room, weight rooms, all these things that the boxes that need to be checked to be a preeminent FBS program the Tigers have done, except find a new stadium. So that'd be a good question to ask, I think, the folks in the Big 12.
All right. So what's your final take on the game on Saturday? Do you think Memphis can pull this thing out?
It's going to be really interesting. I wouldn't want to be gambling a significant sum here. I think that the Bulldogs are maybe a 3.5 point favorite. They're an SEC program, and you don't kick the SEC lightly. So I think the Tigers have a battle on their hands. Something's going to have to give. Memphis has the fourth longest home winning streak in the country at 16 games, but they've lost 12 in a row to the Bulldogs. So something's going to have to give here. I guess I'd pick Mississippi State if I were forced to, maybe giving the points. But I'm not going to be surprised if the Tigers, with all those weapons, Jeff, if they pull off a surprise.
Should be a heck of a contest. Before we let you go, Frank, please do some shameless plugs for all things Frank Murtaugh.
Sure. Yeah, I'm still trying to sell books. Trey's Company. You can find it on Amazon. It's a coming-of-age story set in the 1980s. If your listeners like Stand By Me or The Sandlot, it's from that genre. It's a novel I wrote 4 years ago now, or got published 4 years ago. It took longer than that to write it. But, I'd love to sell some books. So Trey's Company, you can go to my website, frankmurtaugh.com, or just hop on Amazon and buy it directly. And that would be wonderful.
Outstanding. Well, as always, we will follow your coverage as well on the Memphis Flyer and Memphis Magazine. Frank Murtaugh, thanks again for being here.
I appreciate it, Jeff. Always good to be with you.
All right, that leads us into our Players of the Week in football. Calvin Austin III from the Tigers, with his 6 catches for 239, gets the Offensive Player of the Week award. Had touchdown receptions of 55, 50, and 75 yards. Defensive Player of the Week William Quinque of Temple had 7 tackles, 2 sacks, 2.5 for loss, and a 38-yard fumble return for a touchdown in their win at Akron. And the special teams player of the week is Manny Nunnery of Houston. He blocked 2 punts, one which led to a Houston touchdowns in their victory at Rice. Nunnery is one of 3 FBS players with 2 block kicks in a game this season. And we'll be right back with some final news and notes when the AAC report continues in a moment.
If you haven't figured it out yet, I love Tijuana Flats. I would love them even if they weren't a partner with us on the Nightline Sports Network. They have all kinds of great Tex-Mex food, and it's fresh, by the way. Made to order burritos, tacos, enchiladas, chimichangas, quesadillas, bowls, nachos, and taco salads. And if you haven't tried the queso, you are completely missing out. It is the best queso that I've ever had in my life. Absolutely hands down. And the sauce bar that they have, everything from wild to mild in there. Absolutely awesome, awesome stuff. Not only do I love the food at Tijuana Flats, but I love the company, a UCF-born company. And they give back to the community with the Justin Queso Foundation. So head to your local Tijuana Flats. Tex-Mex for everyone. Hey Jeep Wrangler owners, have you ever sat in your office at work and watched the rain just pour into your Jeep because the weatherman said that there was a 0 chance of rain? Or you put your doors back on because there was a 100% chance and then not a drop of rain fell? Well, there's a company out there that can help take the worry away and give you the peace of mind to be without your doors. The company's called Life Without Doors. They make waterproof rain curtains and dash covers for Wranglers. Life Without Doors is there to help make the decision to leave the doors at home an easy one. Find out more at lifewithoutdoors.com.
Spice up your company with homemade marketing services from Tasty Gravy Creative. Tasty Gravy serves up a menu of budget-friendly marketing, graphic design, and public relations services customized to your specific goals. Co-owned by a UCF graduate, Tasty Gravy can help refresh your brand, strengthen your online presence, or reinforce your company's message. Contact Tasty Gravy for help with your website, social media, marketing, advertising materials, and more. Visit tastygravy.com.
Glad you're with us once again on the AAC Report, only on the Nightline Sports Network. Let's close things out with some final news and notes. We start first with women's soccer. The Offensive Player of the Week, Courtney Sabazgo of SMU, the game-winning goal against Rice on Sunday, and added an assist in wins over Denver and Oklahoma State last week. The Defensive Player of the Week, Peyton Doran of SMU, led the back line for the Mustangs in those 3 wins, and provided the game-winning goal against Oklahoma State. Goalkeeper of the week, Tatum Sutherland from SMU. She played in those shutouts, stopping 10 saves against Oklahoma State, 5 more in the Rice game. Rookie of the week, Samantha Wee of Houston, scored her first collegiate goal, also the game-winning goal in double overtime against Jackson State on Sunday. Men's soccer, the Offensive Player of the Week, Alessandro Campoy of UCF, had a great outing against Florida Gulf Coast, scoring 4 goals over the first 60 minutes in that 6-2 victory. In the Defensive Player of the Week, Till Zinhart of Tulsa played a key role there. He was helping the back line limit opponents to just 7 shots on goal in over 180 minutes of action. Also had an assist on the 4th Tulsa goal in their win over Michigan State. The goalkeeper of the week, Alex Lopez of Tulsa. He was the top conference goalkeeper for the 2nd straight week in those victories over Marquette and Michigan State. Turned aside 3 shots against Marquette and added 3 more in the Michigan State game. The Rookie of the Week, Andres Freire of South Florida, scored his first 2 career goals in a 3-1 win over Stetson. Volleyball, the Offensive Player of the Week, McKenna Melville of UCF. She was dominant in their 2-1 weekend this past weekend, led the American with 5.93 points per set and posted the 10th best conference hitting percentage at .322. Defensive Player of the Week, Kate Georgiadis of Houston, ranked 2nd in the American with 4.91 digs per set, aiding Houston in a 2-1 non-conference weekend. That'll do it for this week's show. As always, please follow me on Twitter at JeffAllen_88. And you can follow the Nightline Sports Network at UCF_Nightline. This has been the AAC Report, only on the Nightline Sports Network. I'm Jeff Allen. Thanks for listening.